Hello and welcome to my presentation on La Virgen de los Sicarios by Fernando Vallejo. The La Virgen de los Sicarios is a novel written by Fernando Vallejo and it also was adapted into a movie, and here's a poster of it in 2001. In the poster there's this is one of the main character of the story, who is Alexis, and the novel contains violence and homosexual theme. So, say it's an interesting story about love and violence and also vengeance, but it's certainly not for everyone. Here's a brief introduction to the characters. On the left, we have Fernando, who is a writer who's a writer in his 50s. He came back to Medellin of Colombia to be able to die in the place where he was born. And on the right is his lover Alexis, a young boy, a 16-year-old young boy who is a sicarios, which is a hitman, a hired hitman. It will be a good idea to show the character, so you will have some picture of the character popped into mind, easier to follow the story. And here's my question after seeing the story and seeing the movies and read the novels is that how does the voice tone of the narrator changes when he's getting used to the blood and the violence? And where's the pinpoint from that moment of change? And this is a thesis. The narrator reflects the violence of fictional Medellin through the scope of the relationship between Fernando and Alexis, thus showing how violence and hatred could consume hope and happiness. I break down the thesis into three notable parts. The first one is the violence of fictional Medellin. The second part is a relationship between Fernando and Alexis. And the third one is the violence and hatred and how they has consumed hope and happiness in Medellin. First up, we will start with the relationship between Fernando and Alexis. This relationship is the backbone of the story, and Fernando uses this relationship to describe fictional Medellin after the death of Pablo Escobar. The stories take place after that. After that, the Medellin is not what Fernando used to know. Medellin here is a place filled with poverty, and the culture of male prostitution and hired hitmen are running rampant. The present Medellin, the one where Fernando is living in, has basically no order, and Fernando shaped the story through. The story is shaped through how Fernando's always tell Alexis about the Medellin in his memory, how it used to be, the tradition and the culture of it, and in vice versa, Alexis introduced Fernando to the present Medellin with robbery, murder, and slang, and probably much more of that. Basically, the present Medellin that is has no order. And as the story goes, the story developed through this relationship developed through how Fernando justified Alexis' murder, and from justification comes something else, and vice versa. Alexis' killings for his love, every of his murder is for Fernando. In every relationship, there's always found beauty in any kind of relationship. Here I found the evidence of love between them, which is very, I would say, admirable. In the scene, in the scene right here is a scene where Fernando just saw Alexis's scapular, and these scapulars are the ones that hitmen often wears on them to have blessing for their kills, to have blessing so they won't miss their target, to have blessing for all kind of stuff before they hold the gun and about to go out. So like a normal person would tends to ask what are the meaning of those capitals, but for Fernando he's different. He know what he see. He knows the meaning of those scapulars. He knows that his lover is a hitman, the one who commit murders, but he just forget that fact. But the only thing that he remembers are Alexis's eyes. This fact is actually very romantic because he said the green of his eyes behind which I try to divine his soul is that through that green eyes, Fernando is willing to willing to divine Alexis' souls, which is make it somehow godly, which is whatever he does, that he is in nobody's in any place to call that sin, and he will try to divine his soul however possible. And here are some of the murder justification that Fernando did, and these justification are some of them are the pinpoint for how this relationship has changed and how Fernando is coping with murder throughout the story. The first one is taken out of context, where taken out of the scene where Alexis just killed a guy, basically a neighbor across the street, I think, across the street, where he is playing the music too loud, and that is disturbing Fernando. And that is just a reason that he's not worth the kill in any common sense. But in here, this is how Fernando justifies for the kills. It's that in Medellin there's no innocence. There's no one who is innocent. That we killed the man for being a chichipato, a scum. He is shit for just existing. He is contaminating the air and the river water. Basically, his existence is a sin to itself. His existence is guilty. In here, Fernando used we as he is talking about him and Alexis. He used we but not Alexis because he is trying to say that whatever the reason for the kill, whatever the consequences, we, which is him, both him and Alexis, is gonna take the consequence upon them, not just Alexis. This shows the development in their relationships as he is willing to use we for a kill. The next justification is that after still after Alexis has killed the man, he is in this court. Fernando is saying that if whoever called that a sin of killing that freak, he used we, which means is either Alexis or himself. But in here he justifies that it's not Alexis' fault because Alexis didn't hate the man, and if it's not Alexis, then it must be him. But he never ordered the kill. That he admits that he didn't like the freak, but he didn't order the kill, so that's not his fault. That's how he justified for the kill, and it's not their problem, it's not their sin. So the next up is the violence of the fictional Medellin. This is a very common theme of the story, and it's also one of the factors for the development of the relationship and how Fernando's perspective is changing. Perspective about the murder is changing. In the fictional Medellin, rules and order are non-existent. There are basically no cops in the area because there's very little involvement of government and the free marketing system give rise to the culture of hire hitman. And here's a quote that exemplified how the violence of this fictional magazine has become. At 12, a kid from the communas has already killed someone, and he'll be the next in the line. He kills someone means that he puts a target on his head, and that someone has a family or a friend. When the time of Hitman for Hire is so intense, it's so famously, everybody could have someone who killed the guy, and as you see, the cycle of violence just keep going and going like that. And here's some moments of change that happens to Fernando's. Is that from justification alone, now Fernando is using the word amazing to his killing machines. He's using the term amazing killing machines because amazing seems to be the word that people use to when they are admired with something. Now, from the fact that Fernando has just convinced himself that the kills are some way not sinful, now he's just admiring them. Like, my amazing killing machine, that's the very important term in this quote. And the next one, he's also, again, he used the word amazing. This was taken out of the scene where Alexis has just killed 3 soldiers, and Fernando regard that as amazing. We can see here the development in how he is coping with the murder. And after the murder spree of the 3 soldiers, this is what Fernando said. He said that he and Alexis better get out of there and they should get some lunch, like it's the normal thing to do. They just get some lunch after kill 3 people. And after that, another murder that Alexis commit is of a passerby who commented on their homophobic relationship, calling it disgusting somehow. And for this kill, Fernando totally approved it wholeheartedly. He thinks that the kill sets up an example, and they should teach these stuck-up people tolerance and whatever that is. It's just to eradicate this kind of hatred toward gay people. And the next theme is how the thesis is how violence and hatred has overcome hope and happiness. The violence of Medellin has reached an extent where anything seems bothering, as we discussed, would be killed off, and so does the people who dare to comment it or to look into the problem. So hatred has become so intense that some of the very mundane thing that you do you can get killed for. Here's a quote that I really like. Is that after Alexis killed a poor mime who was just working to what he get, but the mime accidentally annoyed Fernando, and then just like that, his exterminating angel lay waste to the mime. And also he lay waste to some of the other guy who dared to commented on that. But the notable thing here is this sentence where he said, ecstatic, Alexis and I continued down the street. Violence and murder has been so common and so normal to Fernando right now that after a kill they just walked out the street, just continued down like nothing happened. The violence reaches a climax in this scene where a senora heavy with a child, which is a pregnant woman, they get killed by probably the figure of violence in Medellin, a figure of a young boy on a motorcycle, which later will haunt Fernando. because after that, these young boys are the one who kills Alexis. After the death of Alexis, here's another character in the story, which is Wilma, who very much represent Alexis, and Fernando also falls in love with Wilma after Alexis' death, not knowing that Wilma is the one who killed Alexis. After that, the very interesting details about how the common thing between Wilma and Alexis is also their death. They were killed off by these young boys on a motorcycle, which is the Sicarios. This probably the one figure that will haunt Fernando for a long time, because these are the quotes, the scenes where how Wilma and Alexis died. They all died with the eye open, and no matter how hard Fernando tried to close them, they still stay open and looking into eternity, foreverness. And in conclusion, is that the journey of an impossible love between Fernando and Alexis has shown both the beautiful fictional Medellin in the past through Fernando's storytelling of a city filled with nature and tradition, culture where he remembered, and also it shows the relationship has shown the darkest and the most ugly part of the fictional Medellin that was so consumed by violence in the present. And the irony of Fernando's story is that he actually came back to die, but before he died, he see more death rather than his own, and including two of his most beloved personnel.